Hi everyone, myself Bidyutlata Sahoo, working as an assistant professor in the Department of CSC, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today I am going to discuss about the introduction to fuzzy logic. These are the topics to be discussed. First, I will introduce what is the meaning of fuzzy logic, what is fuzzy logic, who is the father of fuzzy logic, and what is the difference between the Boolean logic and the fuzzy logic. This is very important. We need to understand what is the need of the fuzzy logic actually. Addresses the key challenges in expert systems and where not to use the fuzzy logic, and few characteristics of the fuzzy logic, why fuzzy logic is required, and examples or the applications where the fuzzy logic can be used. This is the topic learning outcome. After the completion of this topic, students can understand as well as students can discuss the fundamental concepts of fuzzy logic to handle uncertainty and imprecise information in decision-making process. Let me introduce what is the meaning of fuzzy logic. So fuzzy means which is not correct, or which is uncertain, or which is vague, or which is imprecise. In our daily life, we may come across a situation when we are unable to determine if the state is true or false. There are many situations in everyday life, in every second, we used to assume that we cannot assume a single statement, whatever we are talking, whether it is perfectly true or whether it is perfectly false. Sometimes we may not determine. If I say the outside temperature is too hot and the outside temperature is too cold, whether that too hot or too cold and that statement is really it is correct as per the outside temperature or as per others' perception, that we cannot determine whether it is a true or false. So that is what, while giving the topic learning outcome, one of the thing I told here, like here the fuzzy logic which can handle the uncertainty and imprecise information. Especially the imprecise information means it is related to the data and the knowledge which does not give its correct thing, or which is not precise, which is not certain, which is not exact. That means the information may be vague or uncertain or imprecise. That type of situation can be handled by fuzzy logic, because if we say something and that is uncertain, then based upon the uncertain thing, it would be very difficult to take the decision. So especially for decision making approach, this type of fuzzy logic concepts are used in artificial intelligence. The fuzzy means what? The fuzzy describes something that is unclear or perplexing. So unclear means uncertain, or it is imprecise. That terminology is called as perplexing. Later I will discuss the example so that we can understand. In artificial intelligence, fuzzy logic gives you a lot of versatility when it comes across to human thinking. What is the meaning of versatility? Means this fuzzy logic can be used irrespective of any domain or any application. It has various applications. It can be used and it can correlate what the human being thinks. The similar type of pattern can be represented in the system using fuzzy logic. So that is why it is having most versatility. It is having a lot of versatility when it comes across or comes to human thinking. This is the definition. We can say the meaning of fuzzy. Again, let me introduce. Fuzzy means which is not clear, the word which we may not understand clearly, or the word which is not distinct, or the word which is not precise. Okay, these are the three words. That means the word which is blurred. Okay, that means we are unable to understand. So that type of situation, that type of linguistic variables can be represented with the help of fuzzy logic or systems. So this is what the definition of fuzzy logic. It is a form of knowledge representation suitable for notation that cannot be defined precisely, but which depends upon their context. So basically the fuzzy logic, it depends upon for what approach, for what way we are telling that statement, or the what way that we are expressing the words. Depending upon the context, it can explain or it can represent some numerical values for the machine or for the system. So fuzzy logic, it is a computational paradigm that is based on how humans think. Why it is called as the computational paradigm? Because it is a combination of mathematical framework, and it is a combination of natural reasoning. Even it is a combination of set of rules. Even if it is a combination of approximate values or approximate reasoning, even it is a combination of soft computing also. That is why it is called as a computational paradigm. Especially it is related to mathematics, that too one part of the mathematics which is called as the set theory. So fuzzy logic looks at the world in imprecise terms in much the same way that our brain takes the information. Like for example, we can say the temperature is hot, the speed is slow. So then responds with precise action. So how our brain receives the information in an imprecise way, but that imprecise information we cannot represent in the system, because system always needs the precise inputs in the form of either 0 or 1 or any numeric format. So for this purpose, fuzzy logic is used. The human brain can reason with uncertainties, vagueness, and judgment, whereas the computer only manipulates the precise valuations, because computer does not understand these uncertainties or vagueness or the imprecise information or the data or knowledge. So that is why fuzzy logic is very important attempt to combine these two techniques. Here we can see one of the example, the input which is given in the imprecise format, like the room is warm. What we can understand, the room is warm means like what temperature it specifies. There is no specific information for warmness, but this word can be represented by the fuzzy logic processing. It applies the rules based on the linguistic term. The linguistic term means the language term which is used by the user. So the output after the processing by the fuzzy logic, which can produce the precise action, then we can write, or we can set for the fuzzy logic rule, like set the fan speed to medium. That means if the room temperature is warm, actually what happens, fuzzy logic, what it does, it processes this linguistic variable which is called as warm, because it is uncertain, we do not have any clarity what temperature it is. So whenever, and this linguistic variable will be assigned, will be processed, and it will be converted in the form of 0 and 1 using some function. Those functions are called as membership functions. Membership functions. So these functions again I will discuss after 1 or 2 classes. So, and the output what it generate in the form of if else. If the temperature is like above 30 degree, then set the fan speed to medium. So like this, the if else conditional statements will be processed by the fuzzy logic system. So for fuzzy logic, it is a form of multi-valued logic because it consists of more than one values, especially it requires the set theory operation in the form of algebra, which derived from the fuzzy set theory, designed to deal with reasoning that is approximate rather than accurate. It cannot give the accurate answer, but it will give you the approximate values, in contrast with the crisp logic. This is another logic, actually the traditional logic method, which is called as the crisp logic method, or we can say it is a binary logic method which have only two values. Either it is true or false. So if it is true, then we can represent with 1. If it is false, then we can represent as 0. Only 2 values are there in the crisp set or the binary set or the binary logic. But in comparison to the crisp set, fuzzy logic values are ranges between 0 and 1. Now we can see one of these examples. We can include the linguistic variables like the temperature. We can say the temperature is hot and the temperature is cold. If we consider these two statements in the binary format, so for hot we can represent it is true, and for cold I can represent as false. But how much hot and how much cold we do not know. So those things are uncertain. So fuzzy logic, what it does, it processes this hot and cold value and it assign all the approximate values between true and false. So that means for true we used to consider it is as 1 and false we used to consider as 0. But fuzzy logic, what it does, after processing, it assign all the uncertain values in between the range between 0 to 1. So that means 0 something we can give 0.3, then 0.5, 0.9, like this up to 1. But it cannot beyond 1 or it cannot be less than 0. So all the values ranges between 0 and 1. Suppose I'll say it is hot. It is, we can take the example of same example like temperature. Here you can see temperature, we can say freezing, or temperature is cool, temperature is warm, and temperature is hot. So for hot we can assign the value, or the fuzzy logic can assign the value 1. Whereas for freezing it can assign the value as 0, because these are the threshold values 1 and 0. Between 1 and 0, 2 more values are there. After freezing it is cool, because the priority of the cool is more than the freezing. So it would be, for example, 0 point, suppose 4, and for warm we can write 0.8. So like this the values will be assigned by the fuzzy logic for these linguistic variables. Freezing, cool, warm, and hot, these are the linguistic terms normally our human brain thinks, but computer does not understand those terms. So to make the computer understand, this fuzzy logic is used where the values will be assigned, the approximate values will be assigned for all the linguistic terms between 0 and 1. Same thing for cloud cover. For example, overcast, partly cloudy, and sunny. If sunny is 1 and overcast is 0, then partly cloudy can be assigned as 0.5. Similarly for speed, only 2 values are given, slow and fast. So for fast we can write 1, for slow we can write 0. We will not write, just I am telling you, because all these linguistic terms will be processed by the fuzzy logic. So fuzzy logic, in fact, it is a precise problem solving methodology. It can solve our real life problems or mathematical problems by assigning the values between 0 and 1. It can simultaneously handle the numerical data as well as the linguistic knowledge. Suppose in this example I have written here, in the first example temperature is given as freezing, cool, warm, and hot. Now for all these linguistic variables, fuzzy logic, what it does, it processes and it assigns the values between 0 and 1. Suppose we'll write the marks for a particular subject. We can write 100, somebody is getting 100, somebody is getting 80, somebody is getting 30, somebody is getting 5 also. So for all these values, range of values, the fuzzy logic, it can accept all the numerical values as well as it can assign some numerical numbers which ranges between 0 and 1 for further processing. Like if you take the example of our air conditioner, where we used to set the temperature between, like normally we used to set between 16 to 30. Thus 30 is the extreme case. If we feel very like cold, then we can write, suppose our body does not accommodate with the cold environment, then we can make it at 29 or 30. But normally we used to set the temperature as 16, 17 if the outside temperature is too high. So if the outside temperature is 45 degree, in that case we can set the temperature as 16 degree. If the outside temperature is 30 degree, we can set the temperature as 20 degree. If the outside temperature is 25 degree, then we can set the temperature as like 25 degree. So like this we can raise the values, but all these values cannot be understandable by the compressor of the air conditioned system. So there fuzzy logic is used, which will assign the values between 0 and 1. Between 0 and 1 means what? For 16 degree it will assign the value as 1, and for 25 degrees, suppose this is the least value we are assigning, let it be 0, and in between the value would be let it be 0.5. That means what the processor understand, if the temperature ranges between these 30 to 45 degree, then it will assign the values automatically. The temperature of the AC will be set on up to 20 degree or 25 degree or 16 degree. If the temperature between 30 to 25 degree, automatically it comes down to 20 degree or 21, 22, 25. So that is why these values are very important, which are assigned by the fuzzy logic. So as I told, in the traditional logic, which is called as the crisp set, traditional logic is called as the crisp logic, or it is called as the Boolean logic also. Boolean logic, where two values are considered, either it is 0 or it is 1. But in case of the fuzzy logic, the statement can assume any real values between 0 and 1, representing the degree of truthness to which an element belongs to a given set. So the values, whenever the fuzzy processing assign the values are 0, that is called the degree of truthness for that particular value. So in fuzzy logic, it resembles the human decision making methodology. It deals with the vague and the imprecise information. Imprecise, as I discussed, it is the knowledge of the data which is not perfect or which is not exact, and it is very difficult to take the appropriate decision. That is why fuzzy logic is used. In other words, we can say that fuzzy logic is not a logic that is not fuzzy. This statement is very important. Fuzzy logic is not logic that is fuzzy. That first of all, it is not a logic that is fuzzy. It is used to describe the situation which is fuzziness. Means what our human brain thinks based upon the situation, it tries to simplify in the form of numerical terms. So that is why it is a logic that is used to describe the fuzziness situation. So it may not be designed to give the accurate reasoning, but it designed to give the acceptable or the approximate reasoning. That is why it is called as acceptable or approximate reasoning. Any uncertainties can be easily dealt with the help of fuzzy logic. Especially fuzzy logic is used to handle the uncertain situation or uncertain environment. Now you can see the screen. He is the father of fuzzy logic. Lofty A. Jade. He is a mathematician and computer scientist. So fuzzy logic was introduced in 1965 by Lofty A. Jade in his research paper Fuzzy Sets. He is considered as the father of fuzzy logic. Now you can see this example. Using this example, I hope you can get a clear idea what is the difference between the crisp logic or the Boolean logic and the fuzzy logic. The first example, this is the first example. It is related to the crisp logic, or it is called as the Boolean logic. So one of the example here, it is taken, is Nick honest? This is a normal statement which we think, is Nick honest? So honest is the linguistic term. So based on that, as Boolean logic we are applying, so honest, either Nick is honest or Nick is not honest. Two things can be possible. So if Nick is honest, then it is represented as true. If Nick is not honest, it is represented as false. That means true means yes, or it is 1. False means no, or it is 0. Only two values are there. So these are called as the absolute truth. This one is called as the absolute truth, and 0 is called as absolute false values, right? So honest, for the word honest, either Nick is honest, which can be represented as true, means 1, and Nick can be dishonest, which can be represented as false or 0. So these are extreme 1 and extreme 0, or true or false. These are called as absolute truth and absolute false. Whereas fuzzy logic, we do not know. See, sometimes we say that he is XYZ person is honest and XYZ person is not honest. So, and we do not know up to certain extent a person can be honest. he may be dishonest, or he is sometimes maybe he is honest. So all these things, it comes in our mind. So to understand all those things, fuzzy logic is used. Now you can see the second example. This is the second example. Is Nick honest? Now honest, this linguistic word can be represented in variety of ways. Like the first one is Nick is extremely honest. Nick is very honest. Sometimes Nick is honest and Nick is extremely dishonest. So these are the things it comes in our mind whenever we feel that situation. So how the system will understand? Our brain understand all these uncertain things, but system does not understand. So all possible uncertain situations, uncertain probabilities can be represented using fuzzy logic. Now you can observe extremely honest and extremely dishonest. So we can write here 1.00, here 0.00, which and in between two values are there, very honest and sometimes it is honest, so which is given as 0.85, and here sometimes it is honest, which is assigned as 0.35. So these are the values which ranges between 0 and 1. So that is why fuzzy logic always apply the numerical values between 0 and 1 to understand or to describe all the linguistic terms which are uncertain, or which we understand but computer does not understand. Now, fuzzy logic addresses these key challenges in expert system. Normally, as we already know that expert system, it is a system which can give the expert advice to the user. So it can addresses some challenges or it can help the expert system also. Like the first one, it can represent the domain knowledge using fuzzy set, because as we know that expert system, maybe it is related to educational system, or maybe it is related to the medical system, or it may be related to IARE system. So irrespective of any domain, the expert system can give the expert advice to the user. That is why all the uncertain things it may come across for the expert people or expert system. That is why fuzzy logic is used, which allows for the degree of truth rather than applying the binary true and false. Now, second one is it can handle the imprecise terms that human naturally use, like high temperature or moderate risk. So all these statements can be represented using fuzzy logic by defining the linguistic variables with membership functions. I will discuss the membership functions after 2 videos. And the third one, it can also use to build the decision trees on imprecise thresholds by incorporating the fuzzy rules, allowing for smooth transition between the different decision boundaries instead of sharp and predefined cutoffs. Now, and where we should not use the fuzzy logic. See, fuzzy logic, it is a logic which can handle the situation which is fuzzy. But sometimes we should not use the fuzzy logic also. That means whenever we do not understand, we do not have any clarity, that means human do not understand the system, then in that case, we will not configure the statements using fuzzy logic. That is first case. And second case is if many of the expert people, they disagree about the statements. In that case also, we should not use the fuzzy logic. As well as the knowledge which cannot be expressed with verbal rules. That means if else rules, if we cannot define. Suppose I'll say one of the example. If the outside temperature is 45 degree, then set the AC fan to 16 degree, or let the fan be switched on. So like these statements we can define, but certain situation where we cannot assign the if else rules, or we don't understand about the linguistic term, in that case fuzzy logic is not at all applicable. And these are the few characteristics of the fuzzy logic. This approach is adaptable irrespective of any situation. It can be accommodated because it can understand all the uncertain things and it can convert into numerical values between 0 and 1. It is very simple to comprehend and implement because it assigns the values between 0 and 1. It is used to assist in the reduction of the human created logic. Already I have explained how it reduced our human thought process to the numerical variable. It is the most effective strategy for determining the solution to the situation that require approximate or uncertain reasoning. Everything in the fuzzy logic, it is a matter of degree. It is a matter of degree. As I told, it ranges between 0 to 1. So whenever it assigns 0.35, 0.85, these are called as the degree of truthness. Here the degree of truthness is 1, degree of truthness is 85, degree of truthness is 0, degree of truthness is 0.35. So everything in the fuzzy logic, it is a matter of degree which ranges between 0 and 1. Any system that is logical can be simply fuzzified using the fuzzy logic. And natural language processing is at the heart of it, because fuzzy logic that depends upon the linguistic variable. That variables should be represented in the natural language processing format, because natural language processing is understandable by the system. So our linguistic term will be converted into NLP format. After that, fuzzy logic will be applied to convert into 0 and 1, or in between 0 and 1. It implements the machine learning techniques also. It mimics the logic of human thought. Fuzzy logic, it is a view of inference and guidance of expert system needed, because fuzzy logic a normal user, a normal person cannot implement. For this, expert advices are needed from the experts. Then what is the need of fuzzy logic? Why fuzzy logic? Normally we employ the fuzzy logic system for a variety of commercial and practical applications. First one is it regulates the consumer goods and machines. That means what? Almost in all the electronic gadgets, we are using the air conditioner, there also fuzzy logic is used. We are using the rice cooker, there also fuzzy logic is used. For example, in our rice cooker, normally it is used to cook the rice, and for a cup of rice, we used to add 2 cups of water. That is the proportion everybody knows. By mistake, if we add more water for a 1 cup of rice, then what will happen? Automatically, the system which is present, or the circuit which is present inside the rice cooker, it will increase the temperature to absorb all the moisture from the rice. The same thing happens for the microwave oven. If the consistency of the cake is not as per the appropriate, then what will happen? Automatically the temperature it rises to absorb all the moisture from the batter, so that the cake will be baked in a nice way. So this is the way it regulates the consumer goods and washing machine. In a washing machine, that depends upon the temperature or the flow of water, it increases or decreases. That depends upon the dirtiness of the clothes. So how it is possible? Orally we know that this is what is happening, but the circuit is inbuilt, or circuit is configured with this fuzzy logic. Second one, it provides an acceptable explanation even if it is not accurate. That is normally happens in all the situations. Even the things are not acceptable, it can give the acceptable explanation. That is why the fuzzy logic is used. This aids in the management of engineering uncertainty. Especially all the engineering and management things are related to uncertainty. That is why the fuzzy logic is used to implement or to understand all the linguistic terms. So these are the examples where the fuzzy logic is used, as I already discussed, like our air conditioner, cameras, like we have our mobile phone, we are taking the picture using camera, but sometimes what happens, the outside temperature, maybe it is not efficient or not good to capture the photo. So in that case, what happens, the camera light automatically it set and we can take the picture properly. So that is because of the fuzzy logic. Even it is used in the digital image processing, such as edge detection, as I discussed, the rice cooker, dishwasher, the flow of water, and to make it warm or to make it hot, that depends upon the dirtiness of the utensils. That happens in the dishwasher. That is because of the fuzzy logic. Even elevators also, washing machine and other home appliances, and video game and artificial intelligence also it is used. I hope you might have understood this introductory part of the fuzzy logic. For the preparation of this video, I have referred the Sarah's Cossack book for artificial intelligence, as well as few websites, this YouTube channel. You can also follow it. Next class, I will discuss little bit more about the fuzzy logic. Still, I will continue for the introduction part, where I will discuss few advantages and disadvantages, as well as few applications also. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.